يساعدنا بس انه تخلي الناس تقعد.
ايه خلاص
No, no, sorry.
This will be what is open, okay?
Done. ليه؟ You want to hook him up now? You want to hook him up now?
Yes, yes, yes.
بشنو قاعد هون؟ Sorry.
I think we need to meet them. Yeah, no, we'll talk.
They're gonna connect your mics. Just stay here. They will come.
Check.
كله ميوت.
Test.
Yeah. Test.
بس اسمع مالك
Yeah.
خلي يقرب المايك وايد قريب حلجه او اذا يريحن حط
Test.
أول
Yeah. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a packed schedule. We have a very, very exciting session for you today to talk about how Qatar can be your launchpad and gateway to the broader GCC and MENA region. Our session today will begin with a brief 10-minute opening remarks by His Excellency, the Ambassador of India to the state of Qatar. We're very, very fortunate to have Mr. Vipul with us. The session today will talk about how the region is facing rapid acceleration in technology development and economic diversification, and how Qatar is emerging as a primary testbed for cutting-edge tech. With its world-class infrastructure, innovation-friendly policies, and commitment to fostering global partnerships, Qatar offers Indian startups a very unique opportunity to scale and thrive. In this panel, we'll explore how Qatar is positioning itself as a pivotal hub for innovation, the incentives that are available for foreign startups, and how Indian entrepreneurs can leverage these opportunities to tap into GCC markets. Attendees will gain very valuable insights on navigating the ecosystem, building partnerships, and overcoming challenges to unlock success. I also want to add that the timing of this session is very, very interesting because His Highness the Emir just concluded a trip to India, a state visit, and we're very fortunate to have His Excellency, the Ambassador of India to Qatar, to tell us about Qatar-India relations and the exciting times that lie ahead. Please join me in welcoming His Excellency, Mr. Vipul.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I would first of all like to thank QRDI for doing this session on the startup space and how India and Qatar can work together in taking our partnership forward. As was said by Mr. Malik, we have a very fortunate timing for this panel discussion today because we have just finished the second state visit of His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani to India. This was a historic visit. As I said, this was the second state visit of His Highness, and both sides have kind of prepared a roadmap of how we take forward our historic relationship forward. This was the visit in which both sides upgraded the relationship to a strategic partnership. We have very strong relations between both our countries, whether it be related to people-to-people ties and trade, which has propelled our relationship for the past centuries. But in the last 4 or 5 decades, our energy partnership has grown tremendously. In the last 2 decades or so, the investment partnership between both our countries has grown tremendously, and it continues to grow. And I think now it is time that we grow this partnership further in the emerging areas, especially science and technology and startups. And I think this provides a great platform for both our countries to cement our relationship further. During the meetings of His Highness to India, with Indian Prime Minister, with our President, with the other leaders, this was one of the most important sectors that was talked about. And if I look at the joint statement that both our countries issued during the visit, it again points out that we have talked about the science and technology partnership, startup partnership between both our countries. So the joint statement, if I can quote from it, says that the two sides expressed interest in pursuing deeper collaboration in technology and innovation, including emerging technologies, startups, and artificial intelligence. They discussed avenues for furthering e-governance and sharing best practices in the digital sector. Both sides welcomed the participation of Indian startups in web summits in 2024 and in 2025. So that itself shows that both our countries are working together in this very important area. And this is also important both for India and for Qatar. India for our developmental needs as we go forward in making and realizing the vision of Prime Minister of India of doing a Viksit Bharat, a developed India by 2047, and as Qatar moves forward with innovation and sustainability in its goal of NDS 2030. Now, if I talk about India, India has emerged as a global startup hub, ranking among the top 3 startup ecosystems in the world. There are currently almost 150,000 startups that India has, and almost 100, more than 100 of them are Indian unicorns. I'm happy that some of the Indian startups are represented here in Web Summit. We have also done this year an Indian pavilion in Web Summit, and some of those companies are present here with us as well. On the other hand, Qatar is also investing heavily in startups through QRDI Council as well as other organizations like QSTP. And I think what both of us are looking at is how we can cement this partnership further through these kind of institutions as we go forward. Qatar, of course, aims to diversify its economy beyond hydrocarbons, and innovation, as I said, is at the heart of its National Vision 2030. There are several key strengths of India's startup ecosystem, and government of Prime Minister Modi has brought about a great change in culture in the way business is done in India, with ease of doing business by doing away a lot of antiquated laws. At the same time, there is strong focus on supporting innovation and startups through schemes such as Startup India initiative, which was launched in 2016, which has provided tax benefits, easier compliance, as well as funding support. We also have other schemes like Atal Innovation Mission and Digital India, which have created a strong foundation for tech-driven businesses. By itself, India is a huge market. We all know that, with almost 1.4 billion people. It's a massive market for startups as well in e-commerce, fintech, health tech, edutech, as well as agri-tech. The widespread adoption of smartphones and internet connectivity in India has driven rapid digital transformation, and India today has a thriving tech and digital ecosystem. India is home to global IT giants and a strong talent pool of engineers, developers, AI coders, specialists, and with deep expertise in AI, blockchain, cybersecurity, IoT, Indian startups are solving real-world challenges for India, and those could also be replicated in other countries. So Indian startups do need a lot of funding support, and that can be a massive opportunity for Qatar. And I think some of the startups who have received such kind of funding through QRDI are already here. I think it's important that we continue to attract Indian startups to come to Qatar, scale up from here, and or the other area is also to invest in Indian startups in India. We have seen record venture capital investments in India with major global players investing in Indian unicorns. But I think in terms of India and Qatar, we are nowhere near where our potential exists. As Indian startups scale up, they can also enter other markets, whether it be in the Gulf or other Middle Eastern countries, Africa, in our neighborhood in India, or in Southeast Asian markets, as well as the Western markets. QIA and other Qatari bodies have already invested in Indian startups, and that signals a strong bilateral interest. And as I said, this was also one of the area of discussions during the visit of His Highness to India. I feel that there are several sectors in which private and public sectors of both countries in the startup space, in science and technology space, can work together. And I would just indicate a few. The first one, and India has made great progress in this sector, is that of digital payments. And I'm happy that our unified payments interface is today also working with Qatar National Bank. This will be rolled out here in Qatar. And the partnership in digital payments and blockchain finance can be further strengthened. It can even be taken to third countries. In health tech, there is great potential as Qatar is focusing on precision medicine, and Indian startups are doing some excellent work in AI-driven diagnostics. There could even be opportunities again in this sector also in third countries, including in sectors like telemedicine and affordable medical devices. With India allowing private and foreign investments in some strategic sectors, AI-powered automation, cybersecurity, and space tech startups can also be looked at. We in the embassy have done some kind of a networking in these sectors, and I hope that in the days to come we will see some important outcomes in this regard as well. There are also continuing innovations in India on e-commerce and logistics, with rapid adoption of direct-to-consumer offerings as well as last-mile delivery, and some of these items are also under the radar of the Qatari investors. Lastly, I would say that sustainability and green energy are an emerging area with startups in agri-tech, in EVs, in solar energy, as well as waste management. I think one of our startups which is participating through us in Web Summit this year is also focusing on clean tech and on sustainability. So I think the key requirement that is there between our two countries is that of providing the networks and platforms where startups and investors can come together. And this is where events like Web Summit play a very important role. We should promote joint startup incubators and accelerators which can help validate ideas and business models and provide finance to these kind of startups. I think we also need greater institutional arrangements which help knowledge exchange programs between Indian and Qatari technology institutions. I myself come from IIT Delhi and I passed out long before we had startups. But I think in almost all IITs today, and I think every Qatari also knows about IITs, there is some kind of a focus, some kind of a incubator with respect to startups. I think the need of the hour is that we connect the Qatari institutions with these kind of incubators and accelerators in India, and then take these ideas forward in different areas in startups. So I'm sure that these steps will continue to be taken. I am really excited about the opportunities which are available both in India and in Qatar, and the visit of His Highness to India will really pave the way for strengthening our partnership in this newer area in many sectors which are now coming up. And I'm sure that in the years to come, with the large Indian community which is already present in Qatar, many of the professionals and engineers and technologists who are Indian and who are working here in Qatar, we will have a very strong partnership emerging in all these areas in the years to come. So I would like to stop here, and then we can go ahead in the panel discussion as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We're going to dive right in. Can I please invite our panelists, Mr. Arjun, Mr. Sujit, and Mr. Vishnu to the stage. I'm going to do some very quick intros just so you can put a face to the name. Mr. Arjun is the co-founder and CEO of Syuk. It is a tech-based solution in the IoT space, and his background is in oil and gas. And inspired by India's growing focus on innovation, Arjun co-founded Syuk, a no-code, cloud-agnostic enterprise platform that leverages Gen AI and IoT to solve operational challenges for clients such as Unilever and Fiat. Arjun's leadership is driven by a customer-first mindset and passion for using technology to address real-world problems. Next, we have Mr. Sujit Chakrabarty. He's the founder and CEO of Druby, now known as Lilia. They've rebranded today, actually. It's a very exciting time. It is a leading AI-led diabetes and chronic care solution provider. It is originally based in Singapore. It operates in multiple markets, including India and Qatar, and 4 other Gulf countries, and supports over 20 clients, including providers. Excuse me. Sujit is an alum of the IIT that His Excellency also just mentioned. We also have Mr. Vishnu Narahari, who is a fellow QRDI colleague. Vishnu is the RDI manager, and he oversees the open innovation and technology development grant programs. And he has extensive experience in IP strategy, licensing, innovation management, and venture investments. So without further ado, we're going to kick off, I guess, maybe with a follow-up question, Your Excellency. You mentioned there are key priority areas or sectors that can benefit a lot from partnership and collaboration between Qatar and India. We know that Qatar right now is positioning itself as a hub for technology talent. Can you tell us a little bit about how India's tech talent, specifically its large pool of STEM graduates, can be attracted to Qatar, and that tech talent can benefit the technology ecosystem here in Qatar?
Well, thank you. I think yes, one of the strengths that India has is its human resource and especially its STEM graduates. I think all four of us here on this panel are from IITs, so that is one source. But there are many other colleges in India which are doing exceedingly well, which are producing STEM graduates. I had read somewhere that even in terms of AI coding, almost one-third of the coders will come from India as we move forward. So clearly, there is a great potential that India gives in terms of STEM graduates. Now, I think Qatar stands as a very good point in terms of attracting this talent pool that India has. One, I would say that we have such historic relations that everyone knows about Qatar. We have a large Indian population which already lives in Qatar, which includes people from diverse areas. We have a lot many engineers who are working both on the energy side as well as on infrastructure side here. We have Indian doctors who are working in different hospitals here. So everyone knows about the Qatari ecosystem, and therefore they will be able to get more of the Indian talent to come to Qatar. Secondly, I think Qatar itself is providing great benefits, great incentives for attracting such talent pool. And I think the only need is that we have to talk a little more about these things in India. And I think for that, one of the things that can be done is to have more networks and partnerships between organizations like yours, QRDI Council, as well as other Qatari investors, as well as Qatari universities. And I think that is what we have to promote. So if, for example, a Qatari Technology Institute can work together with an Indian Technology Institute, they can really capture the talent when it is very young. And I can say that people will be very happy to come to Qatar, live here, work here, and also conversely work with Qataris when they are in India. And the strengths that Qatar has in terms of the living standard, in terms of providing finance, providing the ecosystem for growing here, for scaling up here, for validating their ideas, and then also its connectivity with other markets. And I think that is also very important. I think Qatar provides all these things, and with the platform that is now available today and the political will on both sides, I think these are things that will definitely go ahead.
Fantastic, thank you. Love to hear from one of our founders, Mr. Arjun. So as a Indian entrepreneur in Qatar, as an awardee of one of our technology development grants, what originally brought you to Qatar?
Thank you, Malik. If we go a little bit back, I'm not new to Qatar. My first stint in Qatar was almost 16 years ago. I spent 5 years in Qatar, actually working offshore on rigs. So the joke was that I know Qatar offshore better than I know Doha because I spent so much time there. So I was working with a large oil and gas MNC, and then moved to the US, and then went to India to start the company. But always Qatar had a very special position because I spent 5 years here, and it was an amazing 5 years in terms of technology exposure, in terms of knowledge, and in terms of as a place to live, right? And it was amazing. And then we had this opportunity where I met one of my colleagues from Qatar, and he said, you know what, I'll introduce you to Sheikh Mansour, and maybe you come back to Qatar. So I was like, okay. We went spoke to Sheikh Mansour, and Sheikh Mansour said that, I'm okay with supporting you guys as long as you build in Qatar, not just come and sell in Qatar. And that's how this entire genesis of Suk started. And then, we were fortunate enough to be backed by QRDI, and that is really helping us move tech talent into Qatar. In the middle of all of this, I moved to Qatar. I might be CEO of Suk, but in my house I am assistant manager, so I had to take approval. So So, and of course, my wife had also lived in Qatar, and she was very, very open to the idea of moving back because it's a fantastic place to live, right? Amazing place to live, great connectivity, and now, when my kid doesn't do homework, I tell him, if you don't do your homework, we move back to India, and he does all his homework, right? So that part is sorted out.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Malik.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mr. Sujit, your company is a health tech based company. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you learned about adapting your product to the Qatari market, and what are some of the unique challenges that you faced when you're on your startup journey?
Sure. And I think the first thing is context, which is we deal in diabetes and metabolic health. While India and some markets are the highest volumes, there are more than 100 million people with diabetes. But I'm sure you know that countries like Qatar and the Gulf have the highest prevalence globally. So close to 30 to 45% of adults are either living with diabetes or have a risk of diabetes. So what we had built was obviously relevant as a concept. But more importantly, we are a global company. So my co-founder is a Qatari, Dr. Hessa Al-Jaber, and she had also started with the same vision to transform diabetes, right? So in a way, it's a global solution, leveraging global talent. I think the second thing is we are on the journey of AI. So we are literally redefining the way, our rebranding was also driven by that, which is transforming chronic care for, the new world. So there is huge relevance in Qatar as well, right? So, and this is globally relevant. So what we are building over time will also be relevant for all markets in GCC and even beyond. So that's the context.
Fantastic. I'll turn to Vishnu. So you know both ecosystems fairly well, and we're going to take advantage of that knowledge. We know that I feel like Qatar and India have a complementary relationship if we look at their innovation ecosystems. Qatar has been investing heavily in digital transformation. There's world-class infrastructure here. And as His Excellency mentioned earlier, India is this beating heart of talent, and there's tremendous, tremendous potential there, and there's a thriving startup ecosystem. So can you explain to our audience how both countries can leverage each other's strengths to create a mutually beneficial partnership?
Yeah. So, that's true. So I take the advantage of both the ecosystems. So I worked in India extensively in the innovation ecosystem. So I also have hands-on understanding of Indian startups. So moved here. So let's compare like the two parallels. First talk about the strengths of Indian ecosystem. So as His Excellency already mentioned, the first things evidently stands out is that India is the talent powerhouse for the globe. So that is the first unique strength of India. And second, already there are like some statistics that's already been discussed that India is the third largest startup ecosystem in the world that houses more than 150 unicorns. So that already gives an indication that India has undergone already its journey in terms of talent and converting the talent to companies. Now let's take the parallels of Qatar. So Qatar has its own legacy history of creating world-class infrastructure. Definitely stands out one of the best infrastructure in terms of science and tech education, especially in the GCC. Second, of course, Qatar has its own unique position in terms of their constant GDP growth and also like the as a gas economy, especially in the energy world. Gas is one of the intermediate energy transition. So stands out like one of the unique advantage for Qatar. And third is like the access to the funding and access to Qatar is very well positioned to sort of like take that leeway of funding the risk capital now because of its economy advantage too. Now we know the strengths of these two parallels. Now let's put into like what will be the complementary. Now we all know that like all the major countries in GCC have their own national transformation journeys. Also, even Qatar have large vision of creating a knowledge-based economy as part of India's three. Now, if you think, as your question is also about like the digital transformation, digital infrastructure, India in the last decade has done a tremendous job of connecting end-to-end public services, e-governance services, creating very large digital infrastructures. Either you take finance, people identity, and how some of this digital infrastructure has been leveraged and also led to multiple unicorns to create a new business models. I think there is a lot of learnings Qatar can do where there are a lot of NDS targets, even in Qatar in terms of, let's talk about now, Qatar has targets about creating a future ready workforce. And India can become one of the talent powerhouse to reach some of the India's three targets of leveraging the capabilities of Indian talent powerhouse to reach the India's three targets of future ready workforce. Qatar also has a target of the government digital transformation journeys. So end-to-end public service connectivity, digital infrastructure, and I mean, India is one of those country probably with 1.3 billion we connected everything digitally, and it can be the lot that Qatar can leverage with this collaboration to take this know-how and replicate some of this know-how customized to the needs of Qatar, and definitely like it is something like very tested, proved at a large scale. Definitely it should work here.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We have about 4 minutes left. Maybe I'd love to hear from each of you kind of for the startups and the founders that are in the audience that are eager to learn and to hear your advice. So if you would give one piece of advice for a founder that is looking to expand, considering Qatar as a option, if you can just give one piece of advice, what would it be? Maybe we go in order from Mr. Sujit.
Well, it depends on the industry. So, for example, in healthcare, I think the one advice I would give is work through the ecosystem. Sometimes startups try and solve everything on their own, and particularly in areas like healthcare, where you need to work with the insurance companies, the providers, the government. That's a better way to grow. Even if it takes a little more time, it's a surer way to grow, right? So I think it depends on the sector, but I would say the one learning we've had is to really focus on the ecosystem and work with it and leverage it to solve whatever problem you're trying to solve.
Excellent. Arjun.
Great. So if I have to condense it to two words, it is be patient, right? And to add to it, great things will happen. And great things are happening, but the time scale is slightly expanded, right? We are entrepreneurs. We want to do everything like super fast. Like the best time to do things is yesterday. But what really happens is things take longer than expected, especially if you are working with large enterprises. They have an entire process to validate your technology, accept and adapt it. So things take time, be patient. That's the only advice I have. Thank you so much.
Well, for Indian startups, I would say Qatar is a great place to come here, work here. We have a thriving Indian community that adds spice to the place. So I think Indian startups should be coming here. And I think the startup ecosystem which Qatar is today providing should definitely be looked at for its incentives and benefits. And I don't think there are many countries which provide those kind of incentives to startups that Qatar is today providing. And the third thing I would say is don't look only at Qatar market, but also at the Gulf market sitting here in Qatar, as well as other markets, including in Africa or Central Asia, that can also be accessed by startups sitting here in Qatar. So all in all, that provides a great incentive to come here and work here.
Yeah. So one of the piece, I was about to tell what Arjun said, patience, so then I don't repeat it. But one of the second advice that I could see is that even though India is very close to Gulf region, the advice to Indian startup is that don't work from arm's length. Consider at least one of the satellite hub in any of the GCC, and we strongly feel that Qatar has all the capabilities and abilities to serve as a second destination for you. Operate from here but don't work from arm's length.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I think I just want to kind of capture some key messages or takeaway messages for the audience. I think Qatar has invested a great deal over the past 15 years in really becoming world-class in every sense, in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the technology, and now in terms of supporting startups. There is really a strong case to be made for startups to really see Qatar as their home, as their test bed. And as His Excellency mentioned, Qatar should not be your final destination. It is a place where you can set up your R&D. It is a place where you can run your pilots. And of course, it offers you access through its infrastructure and its connectivity really to the rest of the GCC and broader Middle East and North Africa. I want to take the opportunity to thank our panelists, even though we were a little bit short on time, but I think we made good. It's exactly 11:30. Thank you so much for joining today's session, and we appreciate you attending. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.